Millions of dollars were stolen in a infamous Detroit pool room called the Rack, and nobody ever went to jail for it. But the craziest part is that the victims often left with a smile on their face and came back to get robbed again and again. Now let's find out why on this episode of Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs. Now, before we get started, the pool room you're looking at isn't the original Rack. It shares the same name, but the original Rack was a private club. No cameras were allowed. In fact, for a place that became one of the most infamous pool rooms in America, surprisingly few pictures of it exist anywhere. The Rack was one of the most notorious action spots in the country, meaning that there was a lot of gambling going on. Some of the best pool hustlers in the world frequented the Rack. Guys like Freddie the Beard, Jimmy Reed, Freddie Salem, Jay Halford, Harry the Horse, California John McHugh, Washington Tony, and of course the great Cornbread Red, who called the Rack home. These guys attracted some of the highest stakes gambling action anywhere in the world. For example, an old boy named Rosenbaum was reputed to have lost $15 million at the Rack. Fred Smith, the founder of FedEx, was said to have lost piles of money at the Rack and had come back over and over again. Now, he came back, as the story goes, because he could pay his losses with a check, which nobody else could do. However, one of the regulars at the Rack had a connection to a Las Vegas casino that would allow him to cash the check there. He would keep 30% of the check and then give the rest of the money back to the people at the Rack. So Fred Smith was allowed to write a check. Nobody else was. It wasn't unusual to see games played for $1,000, $2,000, even $10,000 per set. And this was in the 60s and 70s when $1,000 meant something. Now, I should point out that pool rooms have more bullshit in them than a cow pasture, so these stories may be a bit fuzzy on the details. Names and amounts could be exaggerated, but these are the stories that I've heard from little Donnie Carlin, who played at the Rack back in the 60s and 70s. Now, here's part of the story that I believe unquestioningly. All of the regulars at the Rack worked together to make sure the local guy won all of the big money games. Now, what do I mean? I mean, when the local guy was shooting, everybody was dead quiet. But when the visitor was shooting, there would be two people arguing in the corner, somebody trying to get a bunch of people ordering a drink, people walking past the pool table, all kinds of stuff to create problems for the person shooting. Then the local guy would get up again, and all of a sudden, all of it would calm down, and the place was dead quiet again. Now, here's why that matters for business. Not because we want to play dirty with our prospects, we want to be on the up and up with them, but we also want to control the area that we're working in. We want to control the sales environment. Whether you're going to their place or whether they're coming to your business, you want to create the best possible environment that allows you to get the sale. For example, when I was doing in-home sales many moons ago, I made a point of sitting down at the head of the table. I didn't sit on the opposite side of the table as the people because that creates an adversarial situation. I sat at the head of the table. I would just walk up to the table to sit down. I would grab the seat at the head of the table. That gave a subconscious feeling that I was in charge at that house at that moment. Now, you might think that that's silly, but it works. There's all kinds of different strategies and tactics that you can use to create a positive sales environment, whether you're at somebody's house or whether they're coming to your business. And the point is that you want to scheme and think and worry about this and do everything that you can do to create a positive sales environment that ensures the money is coming from your prospect to you. Now, of course, you don't want to do it in the way the Rack did it because you don't want to steal money from people. You don't want to put people in a situation where they're going to resent giving you money. You want them thrilled that they're going to give you money. So keep that in mind when you're scheming about how to do this, when you're strategizing about how to create this positive sales environment. But the point is that you want to give a lot of thought to creating a positive sales environment to ensure that you get all of the sales that you possibly can. Now, thank you for joining me on this episode of Hustlers, Gamblers, and Entrepreneurs. And remember, environment beats talent. The Rack wasn't just producing great pool players, it was manufacturing advantages. The lighting, the noise, the crowd, the betting action, the psychological pressure, the local knowledge, the stake horses, the spotters, everything favored the home team. The best sales organizations do exactly the same thing. They don't rely on having superhuman closers. They build an environment where it's normal for average closers to get superhuman outcomes.